Trying to think.
We're good though, aren't we?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
We're good with 5.
Good with 5? Good to start.
Yeah. I would say we're at 6 o'clock. Let's, you guys ready?
Ready.
Fillet,
Here.
Bomer,
Here?
Kribel,
Here.
Dockery,
Here.
Walker, Colby,
Here.
Derwingson, Bush, Layton, Almquist,
Here.
Van Nimwegen,
Here.
Dunleavy, present, Armstrong.
All right, we have minutes to approve from the February 26th, 2024 meeting.
I move to approve those minutes.
Second?
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any unscheduled citizens here this evening? Has anybody signed up to speak to anything that is not on the agenda? Okay. Any amendments to the agenda?
Nope, but I would, we might have potential, do you want to check that? But I do want to introduce you all to our newest.
To our previous planning director.
Young planner in training over here.
Work hard, young man. You may get-
Some of you are familiar with Glenn Van Nimwegen, who was our previous community development director and is filling in at this point to help us out until we can be fully staffed up and maybe even a little bit beyond that. And we have him, it's his show tonight, basically.
Right.
Well, it's great to be here. I've spent the last 3 years in Longmont up in northern Colorado as their Planning and Development Service Director. I did retire and
Here you are.
boy, yeah, second day I thought, I'm kind of bored. It was nice enough to take me on part-time.
We're delighted to have you back.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's been a learning experience, believe me. This one is not like riding a bike.
Right.
So
All
no,
right.
no amendments, though.
No amendments. All right, well, with that, let's go ahead and open the first public hearing.
It's on the.
It's on there, okay, right.
The Winger Minor Subdivision, limited impact review.
There's actually an item before that.
There is?
There is.
If you look at number 2 on there,
So we actually did send out an amendment this morning.
Oh, wait, I didn't get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
oh, it's on the website. All right,
All right, we didn't forward it, okay.
no, it's just
Will you
posted.
introduce that then?
Okay. It is a proposed amendment to Chapter 16, Article 8 of the Salida Municipal Code regarding inclusionary housing, and the request is to continue this public hearing to June 11th, 2024.
This was noticed in the paper for this particular meeting, but due to some unforeseen circumstances with the attorney, we're gonna ask to continue it.
Okay.
It didn't make it onto the agenda, but it was still noticed, so we want to make sure that it's on the
well,
agenda and continue.
It's on the agenda online, but it didn't make it
Online.
into your email.
Yep, correct.
Do we need to move to
We
continue
do,
it to
yeah.
the next
Continue?
meeting,
Yes,
June
please.
June 11th? I so move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue item number 1 to the June 11th, is that what you said, meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Dockery,
Yes.
Walker. Okay. Fillet,
Yes.
Bomer,
Yes?
Derwingson, Colby,
Yes.
Kribel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Onward.
With that, we will go to the Winger Minor Subdivision, correct? Limited impact review.
That's you.
I'll go ahead and open that public hearing. I assume we have proof of publication. And then take it away, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's your first exhibit in your application is the proof of publication. Let's get through a few of the details. This is for a 4-lot subdivision, has a little bit different of a background in that it started as a pre-annexation agreement, which I'm very familiar with, where we allowed it to start development prior to annexation. And part of that pre-application agreement said they must provide housing affordability fee in lieu at the numbers that were being discussed at that time. I don't know if it was even part of the ordinance yet. It was subsequently annexed and zoned to R2 in March of 2022. And basically the lots meet the R2 requirements. So for future development, lots, I think it's 1B, 1C, 1D, all meet the minimums for the R2 district. Basically, they can put a single-family home on each one of those lots. There's an existing residence, which is the applicant's residence on Lot 1A. It's about a 15,000 square foot lot. That's been there for some time, and he continues, or plans to continue to live there. But we put in, I believe, some conditions in case in the future it could be redevelopment for additional units. That's the subdivision. We went through all the requirements as far as meeting criteria for a minor subdivision approval. There's a couple of things I want to talk about. We did get some response from Excel, which is requesting a 16-foot utility easement running across the south end of the site. It felt a little redundant because they have electrical easement in the front of the lots. Excel agreed to take a look at it if the applicant wanted to do with it, and I think Atmos would have to be part of that discussion as well to see if they need to be within that southern 16 feet. So there's potential that that easement could be reduced and maybe create some more buildable area.
Hey, hold on for a second. Glenn, did you have?
Closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Want me to repeat all that?
I think we're good.
We're good.
So there is an opportunity that perhaps the applicant can ask to have that reduced, but they're more than happy, they're fine with the 16 feet. The other thing I want to talk about, which I think the applicant wants to bring up too, we also have a condition about a detached sidewalk of at least 5 feet with the specs that it has to be a minimum of 4 inches thick, be provided along the frontage of this subdivision lot. When the original subdivision went through, as I said, it was done in the county, so that was not a requirement, but engineering feels it's important to put that now. We did provide some flexibility in that the Public Works Director could say, no, you must build that before it's recorded or as part of the recording, or you can pay us a fee in lieu. I think the concern you'll hear is we want that fee in lieu up front, which is close, well, it's just over 13,000 potentially for this 4-lot subdivision. Then there's a number of other conditions regarding school sites that I think you've seen before. We have something about architectural differences. There has to be variety between one house front facade next to another house. Let's see, there's also the current inclusionary housing fee in lieu that will be due with the building permit for these units. And I think that's it. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions on the approval.
Questions for staff? Giff?
Yeah, will there be any other sidewalks on that road?
Not now, right?
Ever? I mean, the 2 lots next to it have been built with no sidewalk. I mean, there's no, and if you continue to the west, all of the lots front the other direction, so there will be no sidewalk there. I see no sense in having this portion of sidewalk on a road that otherwise has no sidewalks.
I think
We add more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere in building those. We spend more money, in my opinion, needlessly. I think that should be dropped.
Just to answer your question regarding east of these lots, I think that would be up to the city to basically finish that out. So, and we want to encourage people to walk or ride their bicycle
I mean,
versus drive, so.
there is, I walk up there a lot. There's very little traffic on that road. You do not need a sidewalk. It just,
Mr.
Does it,
Chairman,
yeah,
I just want to ask, or maybe tack to what Giff's saying. In the past, we've had other things like this with sidewalks, and the Public Works Director has actually elected to have the fee in lieu, so that when in fact there might be a sidewalk, they can do it all continuously. So that sort of supports what Giff is saying, if it happens at all. And so we'll see what the rest of the meeting looks like and go to commissioner comments on that.
And to clarify, that is what the Public Works Director is asking for in this case, is the fee in lieu of building the
Okay,
sidewalks.
so we just need to look at that section and strike the other. It's good. We'll take care of it later.
To follow up on that, I mean, the way I read it here, it says agrees to provide the fee in lieu at the time of the building permit. It has nothing to do with, so it's forcing them to provide that fee at the time of the building.
The fee is at time of development for the sidewalk.
we can get into that when we
Yeah.
get into discussion. If
Okay.
you have any other questions.
Yeah, the fee in lieu for the inclusionary housing is at the time of building permit. The fee in lieu for the sidewalk is at the time of development.
Yeah.
But
is
we
or
can,
is not?
Oh,
Yes.
it's
It is, yeah.
time of development, right.
Any other questions for staff? We can get into that too. I'm sure we can go back and forth a little bit. All right, is the applicant here?
I am.
Come on, would you like to come on up and?
Strike it.
Thank you.
You don't need to sign in if you're the applicant, but if
We
you
know.
could, but if you could
Speak to the
please,
mic.
Like, sure.
yeah.
However you want it. I'd like to say I'd like to proceed with this as quickly as possible. And in that light, despite my discussions with staff, I'd like to proceed as quickly as I can to get this subdivision accomplished. I agree with you, sir. I've lived there for 4 years. People walk and ride on that all the time. There's not much area that can be, a little bit can be developed, but I don't want to pay for a sidewalk to nowhere. There've been various discussions between me and staff today. I didn't even find out that a sidewalk would be required until late Friday afternoon. I haven't had much time to work through this, but I don't want to delay another month. I want to proceed and get this done. If you can agree amongst yourselves and persuade your Public Works Director that he doesn't need a sidewalk there, I would appreciate it. But if I have to pay, I will. I haven't got anything else to say. Do you have any questions of me?
Any questions for the applicant? I do not. We may come back to you in our discussion, so if you just stay close, we may still have a question for you later. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody here to speak to this item? Nope. Okay, we'll go ahead and then we'll go ahead and close the public input and hearing and move to commissioner discussion.
There's a lot of units going in there, so there's gonna be a lot more traffic.
To go back to my question, yeah, I can see the difference at building permit and at the time of development, but it's still going to require the applicant to
Pay the
do it.
money up front.
So the other lots to the east of there, when they were developed, did they require a fee in lieu?
Sorry. So say that one more.
The
time.
there are 2 lots, I believe, east
They
of
were in
there.
the county at the time of development, so we had no authority.
They were not in the city.
over that.
Right. Then they were annexed subsequently.
Correct.
And did they have to pay a fee in lieu when they were?
Not a condition of the annexation, nor
Oh.
the pre-annexation.
Okay, so there has not been any sidewalk money
For the- In
reserved
front of those two
in
units.
front of those 2 houses at all?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And is there, I assume that there's not any kind of connectivity to either like Cotopaxi Lane there or silver spruce?
There is connectivity at the north side between two of the lots off of Cotopaxi Lane. There is a pedestrian access easement that connects you to County Road 141.
So the development to the west end development, that fronts to Cotopaxi, and the back of the properties back to CR 141. So there would not ever be a sidewalk there, correct?
I'm not sure that I would say that.
Maybe not ever, but there's not one planned. There was no money collected for that. There was nothing in the plan that said we're reserving this to potentially put a sidewalk there.
Again, because that was in the county as well.
Okay.
And is in the county still.
Okay.
Where
It's
do
not
those lots end? At the street or 9 feet in from the street?
Probably at the street, I would assume.
The west end?
You can see
The
the,
west
Yeah,
end?
yeah.
Because
From-
if they end at the street, then the city would have to pay them. Theoretically, they could, and that would make them too close to the lot line, and it,
The sidewalk would occur in the right-of-way. It wouldn't occur in private property.
so, but where does the right-of-way end, Glenn? Does it end at where the pavement ends?
No. There's, I don't know how much,
It's 60 feet of right of way in for CR 141. So that bold line north of the west end lots is the difference between county property and city limits. And north of that is 60 feet of right of way until you reach those other private lots on the other side.
And CR 141 at that point is still owned by the county?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. You
So
can
we
see
don't
where the
have
line is
jurisdiction
just
on that.
immediately west of Spruce Street.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah. Okay.
city limits.
I'm satisfied to move along. I feel like we should just strike that. I think this is a very unusual situation. And I think Section E, although it is policy to require a sidewalk or a fee in lieu, we haven't required that for, this would be the only property on that whole stretch that would have to be burdened with that. And I think, for my own self, I would like to just strike E completely and be done with it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Would you like to make an amendment?
Well, we haven't made a motion yet.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm just going to throw it in because I know that the Public Works Director would like me to throw it in.
Okay?
The standard is the standard, the code is the code. And the standard requires the construction of the sidewalk. And he's willing to make the administrative variance for the fee in lieu. Otherwise, he feels that construction of the sidewalk shall be done.
No, okay, I disagree, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready for a motion?
Well, I have one other
Kind of, okay.
comment,
Yeah.
one other thing to discuss. I mean, I know we're going to be talking about this a lot tonight, but in reading this packet and the one that's following and looking at the inclusionary housing ordinance, realizing that whatever the fee is today, whatever that number is, that we give the applicant, and correct me if I'm wrong, we give the applicant 3 years to put in their building permit and the rest of their paperwork to construct the project. Is that correct?
Well, the subdivision, once that's recorded, that's platted,
Right?
right? I mean, if they're not proposing construction with this particular.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
if we were to approve this, for example, how long would that approval last
if they did nothing more.
if they did nothing more?
That's indefinite. I mean,
Oh, is it?
the platting
Okay.
is indefinite once it's recorded.
Okay. I guess my concern is that on item D, the applicants for building permits agree to provide a fee in lieu at the time of building permit application, fee at the rate in effect at the time of building permit application. And I guess I'm having a little discomfort about the moving target that we're creating in doing that. People come to us and we say yes, or no, but let's say we say yes, and the current rate is 1087 per square foot. And that can be variable. So I have a little I have a little concern about that being a moving target. How is a developer of any size, particularly the small developer, how are they supposed to plan their financing not knowing that that rate is set for X amount of time?
So there's been a lot of discussion about that
Yeah.
recently with the updating of the fee schedule as well as forthcoming inclusionary housing code amendments. The theory behind it is to have the amount that is in place at the time that they come in for the building permit be what they will pay, because then they know whether or not they can afford to submit that building permit and afford that amount.
But they've already been through a process like this with a rate that's quoted. So that's my concern. I would like to propose on number D that we change that to say the applicants for building permits agree to provide an in lieu fee at the current rate of $10.87 per square foot at the time of building permit.
So you're proposing that even if it were to go down, they would still have to pay the
Well,
larger
you
amount?
could say at the current rate or less.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
You know, I just
because-
don't like the idea of establishing something with without a ceiling. And I wouldn't mind having, a 3-year, a time frame on that to say it would be at a current rate of $10.87 per square foot or less for a period of X amount of time, giving any applicant the time to plan their project, get their financing, know what their numbers are.
Okay, I'll just point out the fact that the code and the fee schedule have language that is different from that. So that
Right.
would be I'm not sure that this body has that ability to make, in a non-negotiated application, to make an amendment along those lines that doesn't fall
Okay,
within.
and I
the code.
accept that, but I would like to, at another time, I would like to amend the inclusionary housing code to state that.
We will be coming forth
On
on
June
June
11th.
11th with some
Thank you.
language. Yeah.
I rest my case.
So for purposes of D, are you suggesting a change right now?
Well, I'd love to see that. I don't know, Bill's saying we don't have that purview, but I would like to change D to say at the current rate of $10.87 per square foot or less. I'd like to change number D, if we have that authority.
That is the current fee
Right.
passed by the
You
council.
just said that it was going to be reviewed on the 11th, right?
The code language will be
Right.
reviewed. The amount isn't planned to be reviewed for another 6 or so months.
Right.
It just changed last week.
Right.
Right.
But is what we're reviewing on June 11th similar to what Francie wants to do here? That it's fixed for a period of time?
That language is not currently in the draft form of that.
Okay, but
So
we could put
it
it.
could be something
Yeah.
that's proposed.
Okay.
And when is that likely to, so we do it, it goes to the city council when? For first and second reading?
Yeah, it would be 30 days after that second reading, assuming approval, that it would become effective.
Well, I think I'd just like to change this to say at the current rate of $10.87. So
Or
we'll
less.
see what
Or less.
we can say or less.
Because it has changed, the trend is lower with different criteria on it. Right,
Okay.
so,
Anybody else have anything else to say, or should I make a motion?
I mean, they'll have to weigh in on that. But as far as this.
I think I see where you're going with it.
You don't like it?
But I can live with it. I'm not gonna die on that hill, but I kind of see how, I agree with the wording in this, in D. You know, if it's 5 years from now, and everybody else is paying $15, and then, because they did it, I don't know, it seems like.
Well, that's why I was saying-
All the other fees, you pay the building department
Right.
fees, they go up.
That's
you
right.
pay development fees.
Sure. That's why I was thinking maybe having a timeline for 3 years.
For that.
For 3 years.
And then it would go.
And then
to-
it would
and
be
then it
subject
and then it
to
would go
the rate
the-
in effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
Could
it.
you live with that better?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just to echo what Mr. Almquist said, I don't know that you had the.
We don't,
purview
yeah.
In the code.
Right. And that's the other thing I was getting at, is that
Right.
this is the code, and like,
Right.
I agree with, and then we can have that conversation on the 11th, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
And, but for this hearing, I don't
What,
agree with.
I don't really think we're amending the code. We're just amending this particular subdivision.
Well, you're deviating from.
What deviating, yeah? Do we not have that authority?
Theoretically, a deviation
Motto.
has to be a planned development, and this is
Right,
not a
okay.
planned development.
Bingo. Thank you.
So we should leave D alone?
I think so.
Judy, what do you think? Brian? Do we
I can
deviate?
understand leaving it the way it is so
Yeah.
that we're not introducing,
Okay,
a new
yeah,
code
yeah.
criterion.
We'll talk about it on the 11th.
Yeah, a new level of,
Okay.
complexity for somebody else to discover later down the line.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minor subdivision application subject to the following conditions. 1A, the utility easements, which we've discussed, could change based on Excel and Atmos from 16 feet to be reduced. The school site's fair contribution shall be paid per issuance of the building permit. Number C, Salida Municipal Code, no residential facade shall be repeated more than once every 5 lots. I guess that, anyway. D, will leave new residential units constructed. The applicants for building permits agree to provide an in lieu fee at the rate in effect at the time of building permit. I would like to strike section E. And then number 2, applicants should conform with Excel and Atmos Energy, approximate width of the easement. Number 3, water and sewer storm development fees are due at the time of issuance of a building permit.
Second.
All right, motion,
Gonna throw in just one other thing, because I know it might come up, and it's in regard, I heard a little bit of commentary about how quiet the road is currently, and the lack of vehicular traffic. I will note there is an 18-plus acre property immediately to the north of this that is designated for high-density development, which could certainly develop in the, coming years, and will very likely end up putting a fair amount of traffic onto CR 141, because the connections are limited. There's Crestone Mesa Drive to the north, but the only other connectivity is onto Spruce Street to the west of that. That is the property that where the cursor is right now. It extends considerably. So there is that opportunity that there may be a fair amount of traffic on there. I would imagine that, again, Public Works Director would argue that sidewalks will be needed in that area because of the level of traffic that could exist in years to come.
I don't argue with that point. I just think it's a fairness issue.
okay. So we are at a motion and a second to approve, correct?
Yes?
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Fillet,
Yes.
Bomer,
Yes?
Colby,
Yes.
Kribel,
Yes.
Dockery,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. You're good to go.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go build your development.
I have questions I'll pursue those with staff.
Correct. Okay. On to major impact review for amendments to the Greenheart Plan Development and minor subdivision. Go ahead and open that public hearing. Take it away, staff.
Okay.
Chairman
Yeah.
and Commissioners, I have a brief presentation. I'll be happy to fill in any questions. I wasn't here when the plan development and the minor approval. I've known the ordinance pretty well by now, so if there's holes as far as the future, I'll lean to the right or the left here to help answer the questions. But I do have a brief presentation. There we go, cool. So this is a request for a major impact review, and that's to amend a plan development. Giff mentioned it earlier, and the plan development is a zoning overlay that allows some flexibility with the underlying requirements. And this is where the site's located on 7th Street, just north of the school, and looks like there's some C1 adjacent to it. The underlying zoning ended up staying R1 to stay consistent with our land use plan, but there was some changes to the, that the PD allowed. The lot sizes, I believe it's lots 3 and 4 on, that face onto 7th Street were allowed to be smaller than the R1 standard, more consistent with R2. If you could go down one.
One more, or?
No, up
Okay.
one. So this is what the minor subdivision ended up looking like. The minor subdivision was rolled right into the ordinance for the PD, so we are talking about amending both. And I'll show you what the conditions of that PD were. So it was recommended for approval about 2 years ago, March 28th of 2022 by this body. The planning, or the council ended up approving it in May, and I mentioned some of the things allowed by the PD was allowing the private street and counting the frontage for those lots 1 and 2 to be off of that private street, and some zoning standards that I mentioned before as far as the lot size. The reason for a PD is really to take sites like this that are difficult, that are maybe deep with a little bit of frontage, and make them buildable. We need housing, so it did provide additional housing. And then, yeah, go one more. So this is section 3 out of that approval ordinance, and you can see the conditions kind of broke out between the plan development. One thing that the applicant did agree to is to make every effort to try and get local folks, local workforce folks on those lots 3 and 4. They haven't had a total success in doing that, and so they're asking to, something that maybe they failed to do, they weren't really aware, they could talk about affordable housing and the inclusionary housing in lieu as part of the plan development. I feel they kind of missed that opportunity, so they're before you tonight to make those arguments. I think I showed you in the staff report that what they're requesting is basically lock it in to today's rate, which did drop substantially from when this was approved, for a total of 3 years. And they basically will pay the $10.87 per square foot, but put a cap on it of 15,000 something. And that's very consistent with the Cherry Grove major subdivision that was approved. And then on the other part, they asked that because we kind of missed our opportunity back in March and through May to argue about it, could we waive their fees? It's kind of an unusual request, and again, I would say that's probably out of the purview of the Planning Commission to say you don't have to pay for staff's time for this particular request. But if you feel strongly about it, we'll certainly pass that recommendation on to City Council. So, yeah, go ahead. One more. So we gave you some potential motions. We're not making a hard recommendation one way or the other. I think we just say the reason for a PD is to create a buildable site out of something that's maybe a little bit difficult, and this certainly meets that case. They did provide an additional condition that said on their own volition, they will try and get somebody that's local and is workforce member on those 2 lots. So they did go above and beyond. I think from staff standpoint, we just recently got council to drop it down to that 1087. And for some time, staff has committed to every 6 months looking at that price structure and if it's available. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we could turn it over to the applicant to make their case.
Questions for staff?
Yeah. Glenn, if this were condoized, there would be no inclusionary housing fee in lieu requirement, correct? Because it's less than 5 units.
Those were condos.
It's,
Any number.
Right.
it's, and it currently, currently it's any condo plat of any size. Yeah.
No, 5 or, less than 5 or 5 or less.
In fact, I think it even mentions it in
Current
the-
inclusionary
what you sent
housing
us.
is condo plats of any size.
Oh.
It used to be 5 or more
When did-
condos. That was in the change that was made in 2021.
Okay, we need to talk about that on the 11th as well.
My question relates to the code and to what effect the code references the rate structure and the timeline associated with that rate structure, associated with the application or the building permit time.
So the code, I'll bring up the language right now. Give me just a moment. So the language under inclusionary housing for the in lieu fee states currently that it shall be due prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy. Is that what you're asking as far as the timing?
That's important,
I'm
but.
sorry, let me back up,
Yeah.
let me go further back there. It says, the fee shall be calculated as described in the city's fee schedule, established, adopted, and amended by city council from time to time,
Right,
and be due prior to issuance of the certificate of occupancy. So, that is what the in lieu, the code language says.
Right.
Now the fee schedule says, and let me get,
but the code says at the time, the money's due prior to CO based on the current rate.
correct.
And the current rate is $10.87
And this is one of the things that
a
we're gonna
square
try to
foot.
bring
Right, because we
more in
can't wait that
line.
long for,
But-
for.
Together.
For an amount.
$10.87 is the current rate.
Right,
That
and
might
it,
not-
So if the applicant,
for 4-unit subdivision.
right, so in general, whoever has this current approved will get that rate regardless of submitting a proposed change that we're here for tonight.
Right, because the code references you to the fee schedule.
Yeah,
And the fee schedule, to kind of continue, says that the fees shall be calculated as described here and based upon the date of building permit application submittal. Now, this
Right.
is, that's what it says now.
right.
Right.
So if the applicant decides to, he's building 2 properties, they're going to get that rate of $10.87 per square foot right now.
Right now, yes, as long as this fee schedule does not.
Even if it goes down, they would still have to pay $10.87.
No, if it
per square
goes
foot.
down,
If city council changes the rate again.
Oh, the fee schedule.
between
At the
now
time
and their
of-
CO, they
Okay.
get the lower rate.
They
Okay,
would get it at time of permit.
whatever it is at the time of building permit.
I thought you
Whatever
just said CO.
whatever the fee is at the.
Due at
It's-
before CO.
The fee is based off of the timing of submittal of the building
Oh,
permit
okay.
application.
Thank you.
It's due, that amount is
Right.
due at CO.
But the fee is calculated, the fee due is the, if I'm not mistaken, is the fee that is on the schedule on the date of building permit application,
Correct.
Correct.
regardless of what the number is on the day they come before us or council.
Well, they would come to you for the approvals of.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying it's that moving target that we're going to talk about again. Because we could say it's 1087 today, and 3 years from now, when they submit whoever submits a building permit application, if the fee is $15 a square foot, they would pay the 15, unless
Correct.
we set it to where
Right.
it's static.
Right, and this is the same thing that we do for all fees, right?
Right.
Right.
System development fees, open space fees, school fees, whatever it may be. It's whatever that fee is at the time of building permit.
But I don't think we reevaluate those fees every 6 months.
Not with the same frequency, but they
Right.
do get reevaluated
Right.
with some frequency,
Right,
yearly
okay,
or otherwise.
I get it.
I think one difference between this and the other fees is the other fees have not been volatile like
Right.
this. I mean, where fees double, then they get halved and.
Right, they're all
and
over the
so
place.
I don't think that changes in the other fees would have a significant,
Right.
that have happened, would have a significant impact on a developer. Whereas, this could throw things totally
Right.
out of whack.
Again, I think we're getting into
Yeah.
discussion.
Can we hear from the applicant
Yeah, so if there's no more questions for staff, which we can get back to.
later,
let-
June 11th? I don't think you're going to be
Let's
here.
hear from the applicant. Come on up.
And Greg's not going to be here.
I'm going to have Zach start. We received a letter today from a neighbor, and he asked that it says, please read aloud and make part of record at 528 hearing.
We've got a copy of it?
Okay, so we don't have to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Okay, great. All right, thank you guys for hearing me again. A couple things that, the rationale for us coming back, and I'll just go right into this PD process. Negotiation was not something we knew about or understood when we came the first time around. Essentially, we thought we needed access to our 2 back lots. And it was like, well, if you want access, you could do a inclusionary housing fee, or you could do an inclusionary housing fee, the fee in lieu, or you can build a unit at X percent, 120, 130% AMI. We knew that wasn't a possibility based on the cost of our land. We had played with the idea of just splitting it in half, and this wouldn't have even been a discussion, but to be honest with you, we did not want to be land hogs. Having that split in 2 just made no sense to us because we didn't need the property. We also believe in building up and not out, so in avoiding sprawl. So negotiation for us really came up at the last meeting that you guys had when you were all here, and you talked about the word negotiation. The woman that's not here today asked about something up there, and somebody said, well, that's negotiated. And Francie looked at me and said, well, why didn't you negotiate? And I kind of looked at you guys with deer in the headlights, like, what's that? We just didn't, it just wasn't a conversation for us. So this is the confusing part of all this. Using Cherry Creek as as an example, it was in the spring of 2021 when that got approved. We started conversations with the city in September of 2021. So our discussions were based on one thing. Well, then we're getting the engineers to get everything right, because that's what we were really going back and forth about. We submitted February 2nd. February 1st, something else got put into the mix. Well, then we met with you guys, I believe it was March 25th or April 25th when you guys approved us. And then guess what? An amendment was approved a week later that shifted things. So we were the first people that came to you all with this at all, with the new anything. But we kind of didn't know it was happening because in September, October of 2021, we had other examples of what was happening. So it just gets a little complex. So I just wanted to bring up, in neighboring communities, there are fees in lieu, but nothing necessarily for inclusionary housing. I contacted Montrose, Buena Vista, Gunnison, and Leadville, and their fees in lieu look a lot differently. They have many fees in lieu, as do we, but it looks a lot differently than what we have in Salida. And the question was brought up at the last meeting, do they do this anywhere else? And we do fees in lieu of, other places, but nobody said, well, for how much? And I think there's a big difference between us and neighboring communities. I asked Bill for some information, and he recommended I put in a core request. So I have some information on comps of planned developments and minor subdivisions. And comparably speaking, our subdivision will be paying approximately, if, we get 3 2,000 square foot houses and Dustin's little 1,400 square foot, you'll be receiving over $75,000 from Greenheart in fees. The highest fee since 2021 for a planned development was paid by Cherry Grove at $15,748, because that was their cap. Dustin paid $15,218, and that's with the new fees that were approved last month by council. In terms of the minor subdivision, Brick and Boulder condominiums, January 29th, 2024, for 2 condos paid $30,312.89. We alone will be paying about $26,000 just for ours. So there's definitely some discrepancies in, if you want to call it fairness, the code's the code. With the resolution that happened last week, it's very apples to apples. We pay the same amount as the big developer, except we don't, because one thing we don't get are the benefits of density. We do not receive density bonuses, which was brought to my attention at the last council meeting. Furthermore, there is no conversation in council about mixed-use properties. We had an R1 property, and I think, and this is where I'm really confused, those front 2 lots I thought were R2. They're not R2?
No.
Okay. I thought they were R2, so we could have the ability to do different setbacks for people that wanted to do duplexes, or potentially a duplex with a deed-restricted house. So to my knowledge, I thought we made 2 in the back R1, 2 R2, and also to appease the community, because we're surrounded by all of it, including commercial. So we took that R1, and I thought we made it into 2 R2s. But again, that's a little confusing to me. Also, the resolution that we came into made no mention of lots. It was all about for sale units. We weren't planning on building units because we're not that kind of developer. We don't have the funds to be able to do that. So lots was actually brought in later, after we went through the process. So I wonder if the fees are even applicable, because it did change distinctly from units, and then it went to units and lot post us going through this. And I think that would make sense because it's for the traditional developer. That's would make sense. And why that was added in, I'm just not sure. So, like I mentioned, months prior to us starting the negotiations with the city, Cherry Grove had a 5-year on there, what they could build in 5 years, and they had a cap of $15,748. And that was a major subdivision. So we're kind of, getting treated in a significantly different than the major subdivisions. So one thing I'd like to, which Glenn mentioned, we created 4 lots. One of those lots, we have a couple that makes under 60% AMI with 2 little ones living there, and they just wrote a check to the city for over, about $15,000, over $15,000. The other lot, we've had trouble selling, and what I've heard from my realtor, who's not my realtor anymore because we've taken it off and put a for sale by owner sign up, is people aren't going to pay that. I've had not your employees, council's employees, your colleagues ask me about this and say, I'm not going to pay that. I've had teachers, I've had an emergency room doctor that will not pay those fees. And I think part of it's an ethical reason, part of it's financially, it's not going to happen. The option we have is to do a deed restricted house. We owe $289,000 on the property right now, on that last lot. And we're selling it for $259,000. We're trying to sell it. The bank is not going to loan on a formula that doesn't work. And that's a little bit of my frustration with what happened at council last meeting was there needs to be we need to talk about that formula. It doesn't work in today's economy. We can't build on something that we owe on. We'd have to have 80% of it paid off. And trust me, I've gone to the bank, I work at the bank, they're not going to give me money to build on something that we owe so much on, and we're not in the business. One thing that hasn't been brought up, but really we need to think about is every time you take a fee in lieu, it busts into somebody's budget, and they're not gonna spend their money locally. And our neighbors are a great example. When we get dinged for $26,000, I'm going to have to shop differently. And that stinks because you don't reap the benefits of sales tax. And that helps the city of Salida. And so I think that's something we need to keep in mind. And like, Francie has mentioned, people are getting treated this way and that way, and there's frustration because I know I'm not alone anymore. I mean, we've got the Lumbergs that have spoken, Mrs. Bavaria that has spoken. I'm not alone anymore. People are questioning these fees, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. So I would like to ask, despite what Mr. Cairns brought up, I would love to see no fees or less fees, but at this point, I'm just like, if we could have a cap, if we could have 3 years where people could build, because we're having trouble selling that lot, and we're gonna continue to have trouble selling that lot, even with these fees. I mean, they still exist. And is this meant for lots? Is it meant for units? What is it meant for? And why are we different than condominiums? I don't know. So I appreciate you listening, and I can answer questions for you.
It's pretty clear to me.
Questions for applicant? Any questions? We may, as we discuss, we may end up for sure.
Okay,
Thanks, Rob.
yeah. Thank you.
Is there anybody online yeah, okay, so no public input, we'll go right into commissioner discussion.
Okey-doke.
Wait, hold up a second.
Yeah,
The webinar just closed. I didn't touch anything, it just popped up, and organizer had closed the webinar. Okay, I think I just have to close and go. I don't know what happened. Okay. Well, I can log back in. I don't know if they, I'm just trying to remember how. I don't know if I memorized the password.
Pause for a moment.
Pause for a moment.
I'll go check with them real quick. Do you need me to contact Christie?
Well, it's like something,
It might be an internet issue.
it might be.
He's
'Cause
coming
it-
in.
I didn't touch
Yeah, I
anything, and
saw
it just popped up that it
Yeah, it
closed.
might be internet. It'll pop on the internet. Can't tell if you're online there or not. Let's see.
I'm trying to remember.
yeah, mine's just using the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know how that stuff works anyway.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an organizer and may now speak with other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready for your attendees to hear you, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I need to share screen.
Units or less. Condos. Can't believe we let any size.
I'm gonna wait till Bill gets back before we have dialogue.
No fee in.
Yeah,
Okay.
we should not discuss until we're back on.
Any size condo has
Are
a fee
we
in it.
still on? Is everybody?
I think we're back up and running. I think so. It's just gonna be like broken into 2 sessions, I think.
We gotta talk about it on the.
Everything's how I had it before now. Mhm.
It's interesting because in there, he said he's been waiting for.
Been waiting
Give me 1
for,
second. Let me go
okay.
check back. It's not, he said it's not in there.
You know, I mean,
Oh.
how do
That's why we agreed that if it's one,
He sees the feed in there.
Right.
and this is 4, so it's 80%.
Christie did all this and,
So,
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's complicated,
yeah.
but I was looking at it when you were looking at it, and I'm just, which made me think it was, yeah.
Yeah, which seemed
Oh, I
like
do.
that. I was like, I hadn't touched anything.
Over on Scott Street. He had 8 units, I think,
oh, yeah,
remember?
yeah.
And there was an old house, and he chopped it up into 8 lots. I think it was 8 lots.
Yeah, I mean, Tim developed those 2 lots next to his, and he had to pay fee and loan.
But not for inclusionary, yeah, yeah. But he didn't have to pay for sidewalk.
Correct.
How was that? How did that happen if he was in the county?
Because it was a,
They don't have a fee in lieu for.
it was a pre-annexation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Recording.
right, that dictated it. Right.
Can you close the meeting and then reopen it?
Needs to.
This is for.
Or can I see the,
Or,
Things like,
recording?
happening and that could.
how did you, where did you open this go to? Webinar from?
Should I do that?
Clearly changing their
Should I
approach.
click yes?
Are we back online?
Show me.
Checking.
Checking.
Identify that.
Well, I went originally
Hmm.
to here.
Getting an 80%
I
discount on
went
top
to
of
here.
Webinar now.
things
Oh,
that bugs me.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an organizer and may now speak with other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready for your attendees to hear you, press the Start
And this
Broadcast
time it didn't
button on the
make-
Go
first
to
time, though, I
Webinar
had to
control
log
panel.
in as like clerk at City of Salida and then put in the password.
well, there should,
So I
way that
build
we
a-
get to it
I
is we get
build
an email.
a
Somebody
full-on
sends out, somebody
subdivision.
sets up the webinar meeting and then we get an email to join.
Based on that square
When you
footage, so
click
yeah,
here,
like it's based
You know
on the
what I
square
mean?
footage you build, so. and that-
Right, but
You're just creating a
so
whole
then
new
in
meeting.
one.
that
But
needs to
Brian,
be-
if you build one, you don't have the fee
needs
in
to be
lieu.
joined to.
That's what he's saying.
I'm saying if you're building
Did you
one.
get an email or?
So that's great, you get the
Right.
check mark, you
We
move
know
on.
Somebody
who
just
we're
got
gonna,
the
who
last
sets
guy.
up
Now
this
I
webinar.
I
add
set it
fee
up,
to
Set it up and then
4.
but
send out an email.
That's based
bill
on square
system.
foot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, I've
Why
just,
doesn't it just apply to one?
I've never done this.
Because it's a different value.
Oh,
Well, I understand
Yeah.
that the
I
math.
mean,
and
I mean,
the
getting, no, I don't mean the
equation,
math. I mean,
Process
the,
is flawed. is
Well, I
what
mean,
I'm
I-
saying. The process
I
is
don't
flawed.
know.
Do you have an
I
email
think we did a
address
lot
here
of
that
work
you
on
can
this
check?
when we passed it, and I think that
Well,
even
not
spreading it out
on this
among the
computer.
different
I mean, I don't
properties,
think people ever
you
load
know,
their email
made
into this
sense
computer.
because it
Okay.
costs a lot to
So
build
I guess I
one.
didn't,
Right.
So you don't want to just, you build one, you're off the hook, so you don't
I mean, I
apply
have
it across
those,
the board,
because
spread
I get
out
the emails
cost.
too from it.
That's why it was done that way.
All right, hang
And
on
it's-
just a
and it's
second.
per
Let me
square
check
foot,
what
so
email
it-
address that is. And
and
then
it isn't
I'm gonna
a
have you
lot, it's
send
per-
me
per
another
built
invite and then
unit.
I'll be able to log in.
So if you build 5 units, right? But if on the development side, correct me if I'm wrong, with River Ridge, for example, he applied all of those fees to the lots, sold the lots, and that was the end of it. He just, the fee got gobbled up in the
Yeah, it
lots.
got gobbled up in,
Right.
in how he priced the
That's
total
right.
project.
That's right.
But for,
But for a small developer, it's
That's
different.
right.
And that's what we need to talk about on the 11th.
yeah,
Yeah.
for that reason, I think you
Recording it?
No,
Was he
not this one.
broadcasting it somewhere?
No.
No.
should get this.
I think he's still broadcasting.
Okay.
Yeah, to the cable site or
We
something?
just have to make this equitable and move on.
The internet.
Yeah.
It's like NBA timeouts.
Right. Are there commercials?
TV time.
Going back
What
to
are we
review.
selling? You have a commercial, Greg, for fish builders. Now's your chance.
I'm not
Of
advertising.
course, nobody's
anymore.
listening, we're not online, right?
I'm not taking clients.
Right. Oh, we should. Yeah, I love it.
Don't call me, I'm too busy. Yeah. Webinar's gonna come on just as I say something.
Just as you say something. It's you or me. Yeah, it's you or me.
I can't email it to the clerk at City of Salida because it wants to sign
yeah,
into
sign
an
it,
email
yeah.
account and there's no email
And
account
that's
here.
The thing that
Try this. Might be able to join, which is the meeting ID.
Do you want to take a look at that? I can't make much sense of it. Because I think some of those are not fully paid, too. I'm not sure, not sure.
They're paid.
But
Who's paying what?
it's the description
Yes, so,
and the moving target.
so they just figure it in
Said it, so this is what you're paying. This or
fee
less.
and they don't.
You know, that's just ridiculous. Every 6 months.
try to,
3 years to get it.
register and see if something pops up right now.
It's not fair. No, this is the most I would have.
This is not open.
They know.
Yeah, as a business person, that's just reasonable.
Okay, well
Weird
then,
is I got
You
one
don't go,
yesterday.
so I'm guessing we
Price
somehow,
of goods
there's some other
today
way I'm
is
supposed
X,
to go in. I
but
don't
it
know
might,
what
you
way
know, by
that
the
is.
time
I
you.
just went in and logged in.
Christie showed you, right?
Well, we haven't like sat here,
Oh.
but just all the random bits of info, and I'm the only one that's,
Yeah. I'm just
Gotten
wondering if
that
it's
info.
even, if you got a permanent record being made and you didn't have anybody wanting to speak, that really the person's done.
Where is West,
The
Yeah,
Yeah.
the participation piece, right?
where that is?
No, I don't remember.
So
so, yeah, I mean,
somebody
obviously,
jumped up
I
late and
guess
said,
there's a
hey, I
different way.
wanted to get online and say something about,
It's fine when I get home.
Where is the cherry grove?
I put my boots back because I.
Well-
which this one is still, if once we figure out how to get into
Knees
that
down, my
specific.
feet were so swollen and sore.
Well,
And then I had to walk from this part of DFW to this part of DFW. Oh, my God. Yeah,
Swelling of
I know, I did. Yeah. I didn't on the way over there, but I think the problem was we were so active. Walk, every day, up and down, steep. And then we did that Friday, and then we packed. Then we got up the next morning and got on the plane. It was like we didn't, if I ever do that again, I'll have at least 1 or 2 days to chill. Because I think
He's
it was
trying to,
it
he
was
was
the
copied like. some
variance
code.
between, you know, the heavy
I mean, you,
hiking.
any of
And
them
it was
are welcome to try.
this.
no,
God, the
that's your
rocks.
chair.
It's not my chair.
Let's see, yeah.
I don't think I've ever sat up here without something.
Like I do, and get take the COVID part out.
Right, that was perfect.
But
That was
things that were not
perfect.
in the actual
As it turned out.
webinar, we were just.
So I think that's,
I know,
if
we
I
should
ever
be able
go
to-
on a long flight like that, I'll try to
Actual webinar
get a
was
couple of
set up
days.
for
Years and years.
Not to just sit,
You had to be
He's
at
like,
the
"Oh,
meeting.
you get into a
Had a
phone
minutes
I was like,
meeting and
But,
that was
No,
it.
for a fact.
You've
do not
seen-
open
I'll
up
show
our
you.
email
I've
on
got
this
them right here.
computer. So that's not,
so
get into it, I don't know how you get into it.
Okay.
an example
Alright, well.
of the trail.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'm sure it's gonna get any better than this, and he's got it, let me just double check.
9 miles.
He's already brought,
Was
he's
a
still
road.
broadcasting.
Well, and then it went to steps,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it was beautiful, I'm not complaining at all, but it was, then it was something, you know, go up
Yeah.
like that, and then it was like, oops, where was that one, like that. I mean, that was hard on the knees,
Look on his
but
knee.
we did it, and then on the last
Might
day,
have been abused as
we,
once.
not the last day, second to the last day, we went down to the swimming hole. That was after the second to the last, or that second day, we were like, yeah, we did it. And we had to take a boat back to the trailhead,
So,
but
but if you
Okay,
want,
let's continue.
okay.
All right, we'll just continue where we were. Apologies, technical difficulties, but we still have a
The
record.
broadcast
It'll
is now
primarily be
starting.
through
All
YouTube.
attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay,
okay,
where were we?
I have no idea. We were having an ad for
We're
fish
ready to
builders.
have Commissioner
Commissioner
discussion.
comments.
We were just going into there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, we've talked in the last hearing about, making things right on the 11th, and I think we'll continue to do that. But as far as this particular applicant, the thing that bothers me the most is what we talked about earlier. It's like it started here, it went here, it went here, all within a very compressed time frame, without any ability to make changes. So I have no objection to, I think it's very reasonable, to setting that fee at $10.87 per habitable square foot. That is the unit. It's not per lot, it's per square foot. If you build 3 units, it's per square foot of whatever you build on that lot, right? And setting the cap. And I also have no problem recommending to council that we refund the application fee.
Just a question, is that the 1087 is the 80%, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What
The
we
actual
would charge
full,
today.
Yeah.
the full fee in lieu
Right.
is $13.59. So it's
Right.
80% of that because it's
It's 4 units.
Right.
4
And that's
lots.
considerably less than what's on the record right now for them to pay.
Yes, well,
Approved.
That's what they pay right now.
that is what they would pay right now if they came in with a
Well,
building
I understand, but
permit, yeah.
but if we didn't approve this,
Initially.
it would be a lot more than
No,
that.
it would be 1087.
No, their original PD, what is the rate that, if we decline this tonight, what rate will they pay?
1087.
There just wouldn't be a cap.
Well, what about the $20?
Oh, when it was approved, that's what the number was.
Right.
Again, the condition was
At time of
at the
permit.
time of submitting a building permit application.
Right.
So it has come down naturally.
Right, and so we're just resetting that to today's rate.
You're setting a cap.
Setting a
3
cap.
years.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But the building permit has already been granted for 2 of them. So we're essentially lowering the fee on those 2 as well.
Yeah, we'd be, yes, correct. Technically,
By
by
this
the
amendment,
language
we
of
would
that,
be lowering those
that fee
fees
schedule,
as
it would be
well.
coming down to what it
For
is.
all 4
For sure.
All 4.
lots.
Well, if you're setting it with a cap for 3 years, yes, it
Yes,
would be
okay.
true for all 4. I do want to make a couple comments of clarification.
Okay.
Based off of the applicant's testimony. I just want to provide a little bit more insight on a few things. First of all, the Cherry Grove subdivision, just to clarify, that was a major subdivision that it turned into, the piece that got negotiated was the inclusionary housing that got negotiated by council through the subdivision improvement agreement. A little bit unique to this particular situation because there was no subdivision improvement agreement for this, for the Greenheart project because there were no public improvements. Council made a choice to reduce the inclusionary housing through the subdivision improvement agreements because of other sort of extraneous issues, if you will. And they did apply that cap. That was atypical because the cap was not a part of the code. So there was that one change, a unique circumstance. The applicant referenced fees in lieu in other communities. I just want to be very clear. None of the communities that she mentioned have inclusionary housing. They don't have that policy. Inclusionary housing is a very unique policy. It is utilized by many communities throughout the country, only a handful, more than a handful here in the state, but none of the ones that she referenced. Those communities that have inclusionary housing where affordable housing units are required. In some cases, they do have fees in lieu as an option. In other cases, they may not, where they actually do have to build it. That's a bit of an apples and oranges conversation because only some communities actually have inclusionary housing. She did mention some of the other fees in lieu that had been paid, and I believe the one that she did mention specifically, Catherine can speak to a little bit more.
The Brick and Boulder condominiums paid in January $17.40 a square foot. So the reason the amount is lower is they're very small condos.
'cause
They're-
it's
I
a
think they're about
percentage.
750 square feet.
Yeah, as opposed to, like, in this development, one would be approximately like 2,300 square feet. The other one that's just been built was 1,400 square feet. So just to show where those, some
But
of
the
the
rate was
differences might be.
1740.
And then lastly, there was mention of the density, that this particular development could not take advantage of added density. And again, just to remind you all, the added density is only provided when built inclusionary housing units are provided, not when the fee in lieu is provided. I just, for the record, just wanted to
No, I
throw
get
that
it.
out there.
So if I'm understanding this right, if we were to approve this motion, their fee in lieu would be significantly reduced.
It'd be
Correct?
reduced from what would have been assessed at the time of building permit application
And
for
it would
those
apply
two
to
units.
all 4 lots.
If that is how you wish to state it, it can be made to apply to all 4 lots.
It seems like number one
That's the
does
recommendation.
apply, just as stated, to all 4 lots.
But let's be really clear.
It's really the square footage. It's going to be the determining.
Right, yeah, I mean, as Glenn notes, I mean, it really comes down to the amount of square footage, how big
No, I
is the
understand
unit,
that, but the
right?
fee itself, the amount of the fee, the 1087, may I ask the applicant a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you come up? So you've already paid fee in lieu for 2 of the properties, is that correct?
No.
No, you've not paid.
We don't pay we had a choice. We could pay the fee in lieu when we when we submitted our application, which was 17 something.
1740, yeah.
And we decided to wait, and we could do it at CO. So it will be dependent, essentially,
So nothing's been paid yet?
nothing's been paid except for Dustin's lot. He, because he's getting his CO hopefully this week, paid $15,200.
And what was that per square foot?
It's 1087 per the city's resolution or amendment last month.
Okay, all right.
So, 1087 is we expected to pay that, so I haven't asked for a reduction.
Okay, that's
Be-
where I was getting
yeah.
it, is what you're wanting, what you're wanting to do is just make sure that what you agree to, if this is passed, won't change.
Not just that, the big ask is
And-
the
and the
cap
cap, right.
and the 3-year time period
Yeah.
it will still be a challenge because we still have these fees, but at
Right.
least if we can say, well, this is the cap, put it into your budget.
Okay, I understand, thank you very
Okay.
much.
In Article 2, A2 essentially says, we have this 3 years from this date of this ordinance, but the amount could subsequently change in the fee schedule during that period as well.
But the cap
The
won't.
cap
But the
won't,
cap won't.
right,
Right.
right,
The cap,
right, that's why the cap's important.
yeah.
Are we ready to make a motion? Do we have other questions?
To hear one.
Right? All right. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to council, I make a motion to recommend council find the criteria for the substantial amendment to the Green Heart PD and minor subdivision have been met and ordinance 2022-08 should be revised by amending the conditions regarding inclusionary housing fee in lieu to generally state the following 3 things. 1, the owner shall pay a fee in lieu for each principal resident unit constructed equal to the lesser of 1087 per habitable square foot, 15,748, or an amount established by subsequent adopted fee schedule. And I'd like to change that to, or a lower amount established by a subsequent adopted fee schedule. Number 2, the fee in lieu amount shall remain at the above for 3 years from the date of this ordinance. After 3 years prior to the fee in lieu after the 3-year period, the fee in lieu shall be the amount that is in effect at the time of issuance of a building permit for a principal residence. The minor subdivision shall be amended, this is point number 3, to note the temporary fee in lieu reduction. I so move. Oh, and I would like to add a recommendation to council to refund the application fee for this request.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend to city council to approve the impact review.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
When we were talking about caps earlier, I was assuming we were talking about the 3-year, the time cap, as opposed to the cap on the total amount. I know Nina would ask for this body to provide some justification for capping the amounts, not the fee, not the per square foot fee, but the overall fee. And I'm wondering if you could
In the motion?
speak to that. Yes. Yeah.
Not sure I understand what you're asking.
Well,
Us to
as
do.
A1 states
Yeah.
that it shall be equal to the lesser of 1087 per square foot,
Right,
semicolon, $15,748.
yes,
Semicolon, or an amount, or a lower amount established by subsequently adopted fee schedule.
right.
In this case, just, I want everybody to be aware, but also I think, I'm not sure if that discussion has specifically happened. If it is over, what is that division? So if there is a unit,
It's like 14.
That's over a certain square foot, that cap would still apply.
That's right.
right, and
That's
so I
right.
just I'm not sure if there's been that discussion, and I wanted to be clear that everybody is aware of that, and that,
Right. Well, and by saying a lower amount, I'm saying, what if the buildings are tiny?
right.
You know?
So it's 1,449 square feet. So basically, that would be a larger unit. Somebody comes in with on one of those
Right.
lots, builds a
Right.
3,000 square foot home.
Right,
They're still paying the $15,000.
yes.
So they're
Right.
not
Yes.
paying the 1087
Yes.
per square
Yes.
foot on top.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
I just
That's right.
wanted to make
That's
sure.
the way
that
I
was-
read it.
That's right.
Yeah, so
I think that, I mean, maybe you state just in lieu of the applicant's attempt to really do what they said they want to do. Does this matter? I mean, if that's why, because that's why we're doing it.
I mean, you could say,
Saying they have really tried to
Right.
create the housing that they promised.
And they're
to do,
promising to favor local buyers and
And they're not going to sell it to
Right.
somebody that's going to build a
they're going to try.
5,000
That's
square
right.
foot trophy home.
That's right. I'm not,
say promise to favor.
yeah, but we don't have that.
well,
as
you
part of our
promised,
requirement.
the applicant promised to market the property first to Chaffey County residents and local people.
They're doing.
That's what I meant by favor.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
I'm not trying to get into an
Does that help?
illegal real estate.
That's in the, something like that.
Yeah, I just
Right.
wanted to make sure
That was
that it was
part,
clear
we're not
as part of the
changing that.
conversation.
That's part of their original
Yeah.
agreement.
They agree.
Should you add 15,748?
I'm sorry, what was part of
Per
the
unit?
original agreement?
Part of their original agreement was to first market the property to.
Yes,
yeah.
that was the negotiated
Right,
piece.
and that hasn't changed. That's all
for
I'm
getting
saying.
the private
That has
drive and
not
all.
changed.
Correct.
So I also want to just note that when I also added to the motion to recommend city council refund the application fee, not reduce, as stated in the motion. And it's been seconded. I haven't changed a thing. Anybody have any?
Okay, so original motion, no amendment to the
I
motion?
don't know. I don't hear any.
Okay, so original motion and a second to approve.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? Giff, you looked like you were about to say something. Okay,
Fillet,
yes.
Colby,
Yes.
Kribel,
Yes.
Dockery,
Yes,
Bomer,
Yes,
motion passes.
All right,
okay.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh. Come back on June 11th to listen to our lively discussion.
So that's the first council meeting, and then there's a 30 days later?
Well,
No,
June 11th is our next meeting when we're going to talk about this, but that's aside from council.
I can talk to you later as far as council, but basically, June, we're not able to get it on. So it's like the first 2 meetings in July.
Is our next meeting where we're going to talk about how to change the code to make things more fair.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Any updates?
Um,
Code is done?
yeah, no problem.
Hey, Glenn, are you working on it?
Yeah,
No, he says, no, it started while you were here.
Was messing it up.
I know. Is that why you left? You thought it was going to be done while you were gone, and now it's still there?
Like a Billy Martin situation?
Right?
We do have a few things coming to you on the 11th. So the inclusionary housing code amendments. There will be a annexation and zoning, and then a home business request.
Okay.
That we should see. And then we have a bunch of things also stacking up for the regular meeting on the 24th
Got
as
it.
well. So it's going to be a busy month.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting a new planner on board next week.
Yay.
So our senior planner arrives. Still working on trying to find her a space.
Right.
And then we actually will be bringing on another planner
Good.
at the end of the month.
Excellent.
So we're really excited about that. And it's going to take a while, obviously, to bring them on board and get them trained up and everything and used to our processes and whatnot. But it's, I think it'll be good by the time it's all done.
But between those two and having Glenn back for a while, it's hopeful.
It's hopeful.
Yeah.
It's hopeful. Yeah, we'll see what else gets thrown at us.
Right,
But,
right.
but yeah, absolutely. So we're excited about that.
Yep.
Other than that, I don't think we have too much.
Okay. Comments? Motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye. Aye,
All
aye,
right.
aye, aye.
Thank you.
Look at this, it's not even 7:30. We're getting better, getting faster,
Light out.
right?
I almost need my
So Brian,
sunglasses.
before
Only 5
the,
of us here, that's
that's right.
good.
Hey, Brian, before the 11th, dig into that code and look at some of those nuances that we
I don't know
might
how to
need
stop this.
Yeah, I will.
I mean, the condo thing particularly.
And I
don't
can,
remember.
the broadcast has not yet
Changing.
stopped,
Yeah, I thought
FYI.
5, I guess I missed that, 5 or less didn't
There we
have
go.
it.
I think that's
inclusionary
right.
housing, but they're
Okay,
saying no,
well-
I
all
think that
did.
we said, that's not fair.
Right.
If you have-
Somebody else, next time,
like this
someone else
situation,
gets
Right,
this.
right.
You pay it, then
Right,
End it for all.
I do, yeah,
For the small.
for the small ones, I'm not worried about
But
the
you
large ones.
understand that you build one, you pay a 20% fee, two
Right.
is a 40%.